you, Tim. Very good, very good. So I'll try and project as best I can to the back of the room. So thank you very much. Tim invited me to say a few words about collaboration within organisations and how we try and move on the environmental agenda between us. So just in case it wasn't made clear earlier, so I'm head of farming for the National Trust. So we have quite an interesting stake in the countryside. About 1,500 farms in 3 countries, all doing interesting things. And but our major agenda as an organisation is for environmental purposes, set up by an Act of Parliament, and that's well understood, and we've been around for over 100 years. But the point is that there's only so much, even with an organisation of scale of the National Trust, there is a lot more to be had in collaboration with others than you can do as any one organisation. So, I just thought I'd send a little, I've been thinking about how could I best illustrate that this actually works, coming together from different organisations. And Richard might even remember this. I'm going back a long time now, to about 2001, 2002. We'd just been through foot and mouth, and things were interesting. But at that time, there was yet another one of our agricultural policy reviews going on. And at that time, it was very difficult. We just heard about integrating wildlife onto farmland, and I agree with Richard, of an integrated approach. We try and get habitat everywhere that you can within a farmed environment. But at that time, you used to be penalised if you actually gave space for wildlife on field boundaries. You'd actually take it off your subsidy. And those of us who've been around for a little while thought that's slightly barking mad. And yet the thinking of the time was, well, no, this is a support mechanism and we can't possibly support environmental outcomes. So as an idea of this, we thought there's nothing physically stopping us doing this. This is sensible. But we, as at the time, a group of organisations, including Richard was there and a lot of others from Wildlife and Countryside Link, what was missing is we also brought in at that time some agronomists from industry as well, who also agreed that actually looking after field margins was better for crop health. So in combination, I think we had about 22 organisations, something like that. And not only did we overturn the ruling that you were penalised from it, but 3 years later, and whether we can claim some or any of the likelihood of that, but it actually became mandatory that you had to look after the field margins. So now it's a compulsory requirement years later. So it just shows me the power of something when we were told that people will never get that done. And of course that's always a good incentive to get you to get thinking differently. Right now in the environmental world, a really hot topic is that of soil. You probably have mentioned soil a little bit today. But for many years soil has all been about fairly dusty thinking about it's about physics. And quite a lot of chemistry, a bit too much chemistry, some might say, and very little attention was paid to biology. But just in the last decade or so, people have started to wake up, and I'm sure you'll know, Sarah, from farmers have gone from treating soil as a hydroponic growing medium. I think that's where we were coming from. Yep. You can apply horsepower and chemistry, and things grow. To actually thinking, hang on a second, the biology is so much more important, and look what it gives you. It gives you soil health, all the things that Soil Association and others have known for an awful long time, but making that mainstream has taken time. So right now, an umbrella organisation, another example, has formed only in the last 18 months or so, called the Sustainable Soils Alliance. And a lot of us are involved with that, but in combination, there's a much louder voice than any one organisation might have had. So I think it just shows the sense of coming together. When it comes to agroecology, which is, I think, a wonderful coalition of sustainable farming, and I was here, when was it? 4 years ago? 5 years ago? You were going to tell me.
4 years ago, yeah.
4 years ago, not bad, I remember. So at its inaugural launch, what was really powerful about bringing together this particular umbrella of organisations is that farming without labels. It was the idea that we shouldn't just be bashing each other because of a particular aspect that we might be coming from, but it's actually looking for sustainability in a number of different ways. And so what I really like about agroecology, and we do support it and commend it to farmers and others to actually look at the resources on there, because the more that we can expose people thinking differently at how to solve problems, the easier it becomes, because Sarah's given us a little bit of an insight into how your relationship is working with farmers, and I've worked with farmers all my life as well. And I would echo a lot of what you're saying, how to get through to people. But increasingly, enlightened thinking is, well, can I just get some reassurance that these sorts of things work? And so case studies and showing and doing study tours, and we've started embarking the last couple of years ourselves on looking at beyond National Trust farms, taking trust farmers to see farms show really leading light. So a lot of the people who feature on the Agriculture website, we've been visiting physically as well, and this all really helps build a bit of a head of steam. And right now, final point before I hand over to Patrick is that we have great opportunity right now. There's because of the imminent, the likely moving out of the Common Agricultural Policy and the Agriculture Bill in the UK, we are looking at, well, what comes next? And at the moment there's a whole suite of pilot schemes coming up to try and look at what farm support will look like in future. And again, one organisation can't do any of this stuff, so although we're leading on a number of these pilot projects, I think we've got 4 currently, there are about 48 which have already been sanctioned. I think you've just got one sorted out, so there's another wave. And we are going to be increasingly collaborating with others to try and make sure that we're not unnecessarily duplicating effort, to come up with some sensible ideas for what could actually take over from the current farm subsidy system. And these things are likely to, or will be driven to, have environmental outcomes. That's really the goal that we're after, but are useful and practical for farmers to actually follow. As Sarah was saying, if it's too complicated, people will reject it. So we must make it workable. So it's really important to work with farmers to understand how we can make things work. That'll probably do for me for now, and I said I'm quite happy to take some questions.
Yeah, any questions?
I'm just wondering, if a farm becomes vacant, are you able to dictate how that farmer uses the land?
Dictate, probably wouldn't probably shy away from it.
No, I mean that.
Yeah, we can. Good point. In the general, in the land that the National Trust happens to own and occupy, 80% is actually farmed by tenants. So you're right. As they come up and they become vacant, or people either retire or hand over, yeah, we do have an opportunity to put down some parameters under the new farm business tenancy legislation. That is possible, but the point is you still need a person to actually do the job, and you can have the best document you like, but if it's dusty in a drawer, it's no good. It's all about, and Sarah was really good at this, it's just keeping that relationship going. And the other thing I chime with you is it's a dynamic process. You can't do it once and hope that it'll be good forever. As soon as you walk away, somebody will have a different idea. So it's a question about checking in with each other. And you do need to invest heavily in the relationships. And I think where we go wrong is we just let things go, and inevitably other pressures come to bear. So you're right, and we are letting, in the next 5 years, we're expecting dozens of tenancies to come back. So we've got an opportunity to select the types of future farmers that we're after. And typically, when we're interviewing people who are dynamic, surprise, they're dynamic, they're publicly facing, they're keen on diversifying their businesses, they're looking for opportunities. Those people they're easier to listen to than some people who just say, well, I'm just going to carry on what I always did and I deserve a fair price and it's not fair. That is difficult to challenge. And it's not to say that they don't have their place. There are some people, but generally we're after people who are a bit more enlightened and particularly understand their environmental footprint and what the pros and cons of their farming system will be. So.